We showed up on the lot
Yeah.
and we grabbed a little packet, we turned it on, we saw the car. We didn't even talk to
We were
anybody.
like, is that it? I'm a part of
Don't tell me. What
I'm
group
a
is
part
it
of
now?
a group on Facebook.
Well, the reason you need a personal brand is because,
So what's the color of the G in the Google logo?
oh man, I think it's, let me see, there's red, green,
Blue and
yellow. Is it, I think it's green, but it may be blue. What is it?
It's blue.
Is it really?
So Google's pretty big, and we still don't know the color of their logo right
That's
off the bat like
unbelievable.
that.
Yeah.
And you probably see their landing page every single day of your life.
I think of their beach ball, but for the life of me, like I don't
Little
remember.
chrome
Yeah.
symbol.
Now I
Yeah.
gotta look it up.
It's
Google.
blue, so you can see
Well,
it.
it's right now it's white. That's not very helpful, Google. Come on.
But the whole premise behind that is that we resonate with humans and
Mm-hmm.
not logos.
That's very true. You know, what's funny is I actually ask people to link a copy of the 2007 Google logo in their application whenever we're hiring,
Why 2007 logo?
because it requires them to go back in time a little bit, and it's just it's an activity to see if they're paying attention, if they just grab the current logo or whatever it is. But the fact that I asked that question and I couldn't even tell you the color of the
That's
logo.
interesting.
Wow.
So that goes into building a strong personal brand. This is one of the first things we're going to talk about. So there's this thing called an oversubscribed business.
Yes.
Are you like aware of any of the...
Only what you've told me, so I'm going to be a good student.
Okay, so I like to think of an oversubscribed business as a restaurant. A restaurant has so much seating, and if a restaurant is able to accumulate all of the people one at a time as they come in, all the seats are full, you know, that's a normal standard business. They're able to operate, but they're not really able to grow. Or even if there's seats available, it's more of like an undersubscribed business because they don't have people filling the seats. An oversubscribed business in the restaurant form would be a wait list, people lining up out the door just to be a part of, just to grab a seat. That would be an oversubscribed business. So this is a lot like supply and demand and the tension between them. Going back to the product, you always want to make sure that the supply does not outweigh the demand.
I can think of two examples. On a local level, there's a company that started at a farmer's market and they offered a product, and next thing you know, they've got their own storefront, but they only open like once or twice a week. And for years, they've been able to manage having a line out the door on Saturdays and Sundays. And they're only open for a certain amount of time and it's very narrow, but because they've constrained their supply so effectively, there's still people that show up and they line up. And if you think back, I think back of like the console releases over the years.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the Nintendo Wii? I mean, back in...
People went crazy for it, yeah.
You couldn't find them, and they were out of stock for years. People were scalping and stocking them for years. But then, as soon as they have a release where there's an abundant supply and everybody can buy one, that
It's no longer the
right.
thing.
It's almost like it kills the console cycle or something.
There's a whole psychological thing behind that, but it really has to do with the supply and demand tension. People want what other people want.
Yes.
Right? It's the same there. But it leads you to think about the capacity of your business. You know, how many people can you keep feeling delighted? I forget who said it. Someone said that you will never go out of business or run your business in the ground with a bunch of delighted customers.
That's
It just
exactly
won't
right.
happen.
That's exactly right.
So an example would be if you're a DTF printing business, you can work with 8 mid-sized clients and 12 small businesses a year for all of their printing need. That would be your total capacity. Same thing if you go back to a restaurant, having, 50 settings a day. If you meet those 50 settings, that would be, your capacity. So you would need to go over that. You need to find your number. Your number is usually about 2 times what you can handle, just for the rotation of things and your balance of time. And that would be your total capacity availability.
Okay, explain that again. So 2 times what you can handle. What does that number mean?
So like in a restaurant setting, they're only going to be there for so long.
Okay.
Right, you're going to have a lunch and a dinner. So if you're meeting the needs, those drop off and you're meeting the next bunch. Same thing with a small business owner. If you can do, 3 businesses here, 5 businesses there during the year, and then 7 more towards the end. Like that's your total capacity of, per year of how many people that you can have them leave your business feeling delighted.
I see. So in a restaurant, you're saying you might have 2 seatings and you can have 100 tables cycled, even though you've only got 50 physical tables.
Right.
In a direct-to-film business or something like that, you may have, let's say, 15 clients or X number of thousands of transfers per month that you can put out. And I've seen that. There are businesses that we've worked with and we've talked to over the years that they don't scale up their production. It's obviously if you're struggling or if you're not getting sales or if you haven't found a niche yet, it may seem completely absurd to that somebody is so packed that they have to come up with an alternative solution. But instead of scaling up production or adding a third shift or doing something like that, there are a lot of companies that will just sit there, that will trim down their book of business to their best clients. And they say, we only work with a select group of clients, and they handpick their customers, and that's it. And you can apply to be on their list, and then whenever a client drops off or an availability comes open or they add another machine, then you become part of their exclusive printing deal. And that may allow them to produce within 2 or 3 days. So if they offer fulfillment, then what they're doing is, in order for us to maintain our fulfillment numbers and our turnaround times, we are only accepting this number of customers. And that type of exclusivity drives a huge amount of demand because you know
Correct.
they're
Yeah.
a top company.
So the only people who matter are your people, the people who are warm to you and your brand, your personal brand most of the time. Just like with YouTube, we don't make videos for the algorithm. You know, we make them for individuals and businesses because there are people. They're people who matter to us and who are for our brand because we're for them. We've connected on a human level.
Or even the larger circle of people who are just in a tangential related industry. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure, yeah. Well, that's a warm, like a
Right,
warm
they're-
lead. So your brain has something called a limbic system, Limbic, and it naturally filters out most things and it keeps them out of your awareness. So when you're driving somewhere and you don't realize how you've gotten there, you wake up and you're like, oh wow, I shouldn't do that again. So it's removing the things that aren't of a lot of value. There's only a couple things that get through that limbic system, which is why this is so important for personal brand. Things that are scary. So the news does this a lot with, you know, oh, this is a threat, this is happening, this is what it means for you. They drive the fear factor home.
So in one of the books I'm reading right now, they were talking about the levels of fear. Fear is a great motivator of behavioral change, unless there's not enough or there's too much. If there's not enough fear, then the urgency isn't great enough for you to feel like you need to do anything differently than you currently are. It leads to complacency. If the fear is too great, if you're overwhelmed by crushing fear, so these are people with terminal disorders or they could lose everything, whatever it is. If the fear is too great, it also leads to almost no behavioral change. There has to be this middle ground of fear for you to feel it urgently enough that you need to change something, but not so much that you just feel like you can't do anything different.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
It's a very odd balance to try to hit for sure.
Yeah, which is why if you're watching the news all the time, you
Overwhelms
you
your
can actually
senses.
hit that overwhelming point of fear
Wow.
and not be able to behaviorally change anywhere else in your business or in your life or anything like that, which is why one of the number one things to do is turn off
Stop
the news.
watching the
Just turn
news,
it off
yeah.
completely if you want to make a change. Yeah.
That's interesting. The other thing that you can do to get through the limbic system is to do something strange. So, like wearing a nose strip in all of your online videos. You know, that's wearing, you know, a hot dog outfit in front of your business. Like that's the type,
Okay,
you know, it makes you stick out. And then another way is to give away free gifts, something of value.
Okay.
So if someone were standing on a corner giving away gold bars and they have, you know, certificate of authenticity and all that, of course you're like, oh yeah, you're gonna see that.
You know what? Believe it or not, there is a guy on YouTube who he literally stands on the corner of the street, not in the corner of the street, in the middle of the street, wherever his shop is in Manhattan. And he'll walk out there with a tray full of like silver coins. I think the other day he had like a 10-kilo bar of gold. And he was just offering gold and silver to people. The vast majority of people just, no. Yeah, they just ignored him and kept
Yeah.
moving. And he's like, you know, a gold coin's $2,300 and a thing of silver's 35,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is right now.
Well, you have to think people are used to being bombarded with things.
Right.
You go on YouTube and you want real advice on how to make money and you're overwhelmed with these, make $30,000 in 7 days. And it's just, you know it's unrealistic. You know that it's probably gonna waste your time. They're just doing it for views. You know that there's gonna be a lot of upfront work that goes into it. And most of the people don't have their set of circumstances going on.
Or you didn't know that at first. I think why it was such a good trend initially
yeah.
was because it seemed really hopeful. If it's the first time you've ever heard,
great thing to
go out
advertise.
and make $30,000 in 30 days, whatever it is. If you hear that for the first time,
Yeah.
you're going to be curious.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if you hear it over and over and over again, and then the promises turn out to be weak, and
Right.
the video behind it is weak, or it's way more work than you thought, or it's way more niche, or any number of the things that disqualify it from being, can I sit here on the couch and make that kind of money?
Right.
Eventually, it turns into noise. So no matter how extravagant the offer seems like it is on the surface, eventually that type of video is just going to tank because
Right.
you're going to run out of people who are interested in hearing it or haven't heard it enough to be just jaded to it.
Yeah.
And that same kind of thing is happening, they call it the beastification of YouTube, where you just have this hyper editing and all of these crazy things going on screen, and one
that
versus
named after
100
Mr.
million.
Beast?
Yeah, they call it the beastification because it's just crazy. And now people are so burned out on it. They're watching
Wow.
3-hour videos with, what's that that 22-year-old kid's
I
name is
usually
all.
type in like, I don't watch those. I usually type in like Harry Potter ambiance. Really relaxing.
Sure, I gotta remember what that guy's name is. Yeah, there we go. Sam Sulik, 3.5 million subscribers.
Insane.
The dude doesn't, he spends like 40 minutes just talking.
Wow.
Almost no edits, and he's extremely popular. That is like the inverse of the beastification, which is happening.
Wow.
But that just goes to show you.
He probably has a lot of people in his inner circle who feel like they know him, and if he were to offer a product, it would probably take off.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's probably spent weeks worth of time with some of these people who feel like they have a relationship with him.
Right.
You know?
So businesses that scale really quickly often give away a lot of free gifts. This worked for me in my apparel business. I gave away too many things to count. I did sweatshirts, so if someone were to order a sweatshirt and I had talked to them previously and they were like, yeah, I'm deciding between this one, or this one and these two. And so they order, and I already have their size. I already have what they're interested in. So what I do is I know that they're going to be on their computer because they've been talking to me. They probably have an Instagram. So I'll send the other things that we had talked about, unknowing to them. I'll pay the extra postage. And what happens 10 times out of 10? 100% of the time, they leave me a 5-star review, and I get a post on Instagram about it.
That's interesting.
100% of the time, because I put in the rapport, we built a relationship, and I'm sending them free things. Same thing happened with jewelry when I was holding jewelry. It's something that you can give away that you don't need their size. You don't need to know a preference on anything. It's one size fits all. Easily, it's small. You can package it, send it. Doesn't add a lot of weight or bulk. They cost me almost nothing,
Right.
and I'm able to ship them with something that they've ordered. It's just going to make them feel like you're spending time on them.
Like they stood out and they were
Yes.
valued.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So would a free invite to our growth potential quiz be considered a gift?
Yes, that is a gift, and
Well,
it's
there
a
we
great
go.
gift.
So take a look at our free growth potential quiz in the description. It takes less than 3 minutes. There's no strings attached, and you'll get a free personalized report based on how you score in 5 different areas that are a pretty good indicator of whether or not your business is on track to be successful in the future and where you might be struggling right now.
And I was so surprised at some of the percentages. Like I was expecting something, and I got something totally different in some areas.
Yes, and some of the people who we've already worked with, we can see, they say, oh man, I thought I was going to score better, and I scored a 49, and there was a this or that,
And they're doing really well.
Yes.
But it just shows areas that they could get better in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move on to the final thing that gets through the limbic system, familiar things. So this happened to me the other day where I was driving down the road with one of my friends, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my dad in his truck passing. And I was like, I think that was just my dad. And sure enough, he calls me like 2 seconds later and tells me, I just saw you. So we both had and I wasn't even in my car.
Right.
I was in my friend's car. So
That's so
I
funny.
know, but your brain picks up on familiar things, which is why it's so important that you build that rapport with people.
And that's just cars. I mean, I couldn't tell you any of the cars that we pass unless it's a car that's like ours, or a car we used to own, or a car that we want. That's really the only things that would stand out.
Yes.
Other than that, it's all just a blur. But the second you spot a friend or a family's car, or maybe a police car running radar, things you're attuned to, that's the only ones you notice.
Did you know there's a reason for that?
Why?
Dunbar's numbers, Robin Dunbar. He actually did a study on this, and you have your inner circle of so for us, if you're a family, like us and our kids, that's our inner little 5. And then it goes to like your extended family, and then your friends. So the circle goes 5, 10, 15, and just these concentric circles just get bigger.
Of less familiarity and closeness? Okay.
Yes. So the circles just kind of grow outward from the center circle. And what he came to realize was that you have to spend a total of about 7 hours with someone, either through online, reading their book, watching their YouTube videos, on the phone with them, texting them, emailing them. You'd spend 7 hours to get them to move into the acquaintance circle. So to feel comfortable and to build that trust with them. That's a long time.
Absolutely.
Not many businesses or personal brands have that 7 hours. I mean, how many of you guys have 7 hours where people can spend with you online for what you're trying to sell? That's important.
And we even talked about the method that you use to reach out to your customers matters too.
Yes.
If you're on TikTok or just Instagram and the only point of contact you have with your audience is a short reel, it takes hundreds of interactions to
So
build the same
many.
amount of rapport
Yeah.
that an in-person handshake interaction would be able to do.
Or
much
even
quicker.
longer form content.
Or long form content
Yes.
if that's something,
Yeah. So Google did another thing where they were researching how many like clicks or interactions, or if you're looking at something.
So pointing to that, we have the ability to track the lifetime visit of somebody on one of our websites. And we'll see that they show up a certain number of times on their path to purchase, regardless of where they came.
Yeah.
So I would say that, you know, in one of our businesses, we have a certain number that we hit before we see a conversion.
Can I ask you what that number is? Do you know offhand?
I would say
ballpark.
Okay, ballpark. For people that did not come from an extremely warm lead. So if this wasn't referred by another influencer that they trust a ton, and the way we can track that is there's a coupon code that they use.
Right.
We've noticed that the number of visits that people make whenever they attend or whenever they purchase using a coupon code is like 1 to 4.
Wow.
Whenever they are converting from a Facebook ad or SEO or anything like that,
completely cold.
Completely different, completely cold, is 8 to 20
Wow.
is the number that we see. And it's usually skewed lower than that.
Yeah. So Google says about 10.7.
I could see that.
They have to have about 10.7, so 11 interactions. So they're kind of stalking the piece of equipment or whatever it is that they're looking
around,
at. Yes. So that's why there's this whole thing behind it called the 7-11, where you have
7-11.
7 interactions, 7 hours of interaction to move into that acquaintance circle, and 11 points of contact.
Wow.
So I think of my watch. I have been 7-11'd by Citizen because, you know, you purchased the watch for me. It was one of the first gifts you've ever gave me. And so ever since then, I'm always like watching Citizen and seeing what they're releasing and what they have. So I have been 7-11'd by Citizen because it has like a point of warm contact in my mind. Like I know the company, I trust the company, and I like the company.
That's very interesting how that works with brands.
And it's funny that the points for your website match what Google has said.
In that same range,
yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. So that brings into question, just how many people do you have to 7-Eleven for your business? Do you have an idea of what that number is? Or even like I was surprised by it.
Here's my guess.
Okay.
7-Elevening. If you had 1,000 true fans, this is, I hear this all the time, if you had 1,000 true fans, then you would be able to build a sustainable business.
That's very close.
Okay.
And it is dependent upon what your capacity is from earlier.
Okay.
So the answer is 20 times more than your capacity.
Okay.
So if your capacity is 100, you'll need around 2,000 people in your inner circle of trust for your brand.
Interesting. So that means if your production capacity is 100 clients a month or whatever it is. That's interesting.
But now that's for oversubscribed. So we're looking at the tension between supply and demand. You always want to have an oversubscribed business because it's going to lead to success.
Very
If you have an undersubscribed business or a business that has a nice and easy tension pull on supply and demand, you're not going to be growing. Okay, so how do you do this? This is our next point, understanding and utilizing the limbic system that we just talked about.
Okay.
I just released a video on the 5 Ps: purpose, proficiency, positioning, profile, and partnerships. It seems like a lot, but it's not. We'll link the video. It's a great idea to understand how to make the sales and why it's so important.
I think that's like a level 3, level 4 video.
Probably.
That we gave away on YouTube,
Yes.
for sure.
It says a lot about the inner workings of your business.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about like influencers and how to help them, you know, with your product and getting it out there. There are a lot of elements to the supply and demand tension that'll help you understand it better in the long run.
As we were talking about it, I think that there's 3 or 4 people that we're talking to right now that it super applies to.
Yes.
And even what we're looking at our level, it's like, okay, these are the things that you need to be focusing on. Once you've solved the very basic things and you start digging in deeper and deeper, you start having to unravel the nuts and bolts of what makes certain aspects of your business work. And if you just keep it surface level, that's fine, but you're always going to be running into unexpected roadblocks until you dive in and say, what is it that makes things tick? For instance, thumbnail design on YouTube. You can see a good thumbnail and you can recognize what makes a good thumbnail and you can copy a good thumbnail. But unless you understand the psychology underpinning it, it makes it much more difficult to originate one.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think you don't really grasp the why. You can't really originate much.
Right. And if the trends start to change, you won't be able to come up with how to lean into the front end of that trend at all.
Right, you'll have no idea.
Like the move from light mode to dark mode. Colors like yellow and orange, they start to pop on dark mode monitors.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Right.
I saw this really cool thumbnail. A guy was like pouring out boards onto a table that was white, and it looked like on mine, because I use white mode, that they were spilling off the screen. It looked really cool. But then I showed you on your computer.
And it just looks terrible.
Because you have a dark mode, yeah.
Now the majority of people are going to dark mode. Guys like like Ryan Trahan, different things like that. They're using dark mode style thumbnails, bright pops of color that stand out.
The greens and the blues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. So with the limbic system, you have to look at the effective use of free gifts for sure. Like that should be something that I think every business does. Something that doesn't cost you a lot, but it gives perceived value.
Okay.
So first you have to make your market, and then you get to make your sales. So you don't get to bombard people with buy this, buy this, buy this. You know, if you're not understanding who your market is or what their needs are, you have no right to be selling to them because you don't know what their needs are.
I think it's interesting. I've heard two sides of this so far recently. I've heard that people are probably trying to sell much less than the capacity of their audience is willing to be sold to. Not selling to them. They ask for a close far less than they think they're asking. So some of the people who think they're pushing way too hard are actually not really even approaching their customers trying to get a close. And they were talking about just when you meet a new customer, it's almost like you're saying, hey, do you want to go out on a date? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to marry me? No, not at all. Okay. Do you want to go out on another date? Yeah. Okay. All right. You want to marry me? No. All right. Here's some roses. Do you want to go out on another date? Yeah. Do you want to marry me? Well, okay. You know what I mean? It's like you keep asking and you keep asking and you keep giving value and you keep providing and all these things. And eventually you get the close. But most people, they don't ever really ask for the close. They say, hey, I've got all this capacity. And they just wait.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here and I'm doing cool things. And they just wait. And they keep talking around the idea, but they never sit there and look at the customer and say, hey, I've got this. You have a need. Are we going to do business? Can you buy from me right now? You know what I mean? Like they don't ask for the close. So you have to at least ask for it. But they will push. They will push salesy speak without ever asking for the specific action.
I think that's why a lot of people don't, though. They don't like the whole salesy aspect to it. So that it reminds me, it's like if I were to say to you, are you ready to commit to purchasing a DTF for your business? Oh, no. That's a big commitment. That's expensive. I'm not ready to do that. You'd be 100% ready to make that purchase. You know, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
But if I say, would you like to grow your apparel business? Unlimited color printing capabilities, hyper custom designs that you can do, all while accessing any niche that you want to. Do you want to hear more? Sure. I don't have to be 100% ready to say 100% yes, I'm going to buy that thing. But I am warm to the idea of opening up to hearing about this thing that has all these great capabilities for me.
So what I would assume is instead of sharing the benefits with them or the capabilities, because that's the what really. If you're saying, oh, do you want to buy this DTF? It does full color printing. That's like the benefits.
Yeah.
Really, the thing that's going to resonate with people in most cases is the internal problem that they feel like they want to get solved. I want to feel like I have the best platform on the market. I can deliver the best product. I have the best capability, whatever that feeling is. And then I want to be successful and I want to solve whatever it is. So it's almost like you say, hey, I can solve this problem with this tool, and then you present, this is the tool to do it. So, hey, you want to have a comfortable lifestyle and everything like that? Well, then the solution is this tool. Instead of, hey, buy this tool for $20,000 or whatever it is. It's like, no, here's your problem. We're articulating. We're on the same page. Walk into it.
I think a lot of customers buying machines like that, though, don't always have a specific niche in mind. They don't always have a specific design in mind. They're going to be taking on a lot of orders. So keeping something open when you're selling a product like that, like Fitbit, we'll go back to Fitbit, they don't know their specific health requirements for each and every individual. So they generalize healthy adult 10,000 steps a day. You know, do you want to get 10,000 steps a day? Do you want to better your health?
Yeah, they're focusing on an outcome.
Right.
So they're not saying, hey, do you have a strange version of type 2 diabetes fueled by your addiction to Oreos? No, they're saying, hey.
No, they have a patch for that.
Yeah, 10,000 steps to a healthier you. Here's the tool to get there. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's almost a byproduct of it.
But it's how you ask and how you present something. So like, I don't want to be pushy or salesy. You know, I know you don't like that. I know a lot of people don't like that. They don't function well like that. I think it goes against a lot of their personality types. You know, no one wants to be pushed and sold to. There's this like thing where they think Americans are just like this brash, you know, oh, buy now, you know. But in reality, a lot of us aren't like that. We don't like that. We don't like the confrontation. We don't like, we'll talk to you, we'll get to know you, we'll spend 5 hours on the phone with you.
Sure.
But when it comes
I'm guilty of that one, yeah.
That wasn't a call out.
Felt call out.
But when it comes to, you know, hey, I know that you have needs. I have something that can help you with those needs. But it's how you present that, I think, at the end of the day.
It reminds me of CarMax's whole platform. They sell used cars, but the problem that they solved was not people's inability to access used cars. Their problem was the internal frustration people felt at dealing with used car salesmen. They didn't want to be sold a lemon. They didn't want to be price gouged. They didn't want to be, manipulated or anything like that. So what CarMax did was they said, okay, price on the car, the sticker price is the price you'll pay. All of our employees get paid a set flat commission no matter what car you buy in the lot, so they don't have an incentive to manipulate you into anything. And we're going to have a system in place to make sure that we have, a minimum quality for the cars that we put on the lot. So by doing that, they addressed the internal problem people felt with the process of buying cars and the used car salesmen that they did not want to interact with. And then in turn, they became a $15 billion company.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of Tesla. Like after you go through the process of buying a Tesla, I would be hard pressed to ever buy through any other company just because of the feature of not having to deal with anyone. You get what you get because they have a set price. You don't have to have any contact when you pick up. Even when you're taking it for service, it's all on the app. And that's a huge selling feature whenever you think about it to a lot of people.
I'm sure if we had more experience with like luxury car brands where they just treat you special or some way.
You don't think Tesla's a luxury? I think it's pretty luxury.
Not anymore.
It is though, it really
so?
is. It is.
I don't know, there's so many out there that I don't think it's the car company it was 4 years ago.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think with the number that they've got on the...
It's not like top tier, like you can't compare it to like a Bentley, but in the normal car sphere of what most people get, it's a great service.
I would say 4 years ago, the ability to just buy with a set price, knowing exactly what you're going to pay, not have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't even think we had to talk
It
to
was
anybody.
ahead of its time, for
It was.
sure.
We showed up on the lot and we grabbed a little packet, we turned it on, we saw the car. We didn't even talk to anybody.
We were like, is that it?
Yeah,
Can we
the
just
process
leave?
is done. We just drive off, I guess.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, they're more popular than 2006 Toyota Camrys and stuff like that. Like they're everywhere. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Third of a million a year going out and stuff like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk, actually, we're talking about Tesla. He did this with the Cybertruck, where he had a deposit of $100, and for everyone interested to be on the wait list, so we were talking about wait lists earlier, he had over 1 million people opt in on that
$100
wait
million
list. And
worth
it's just
of
waiting
deposits.
for him to build the business of Cybertruck.
Talk about oversubscribed.
Yeah.
Oh man.
For sure.
Yeah. I saw something the other day where they have so many Tesla Cybertrucks and other vehicles that they're renting out parking lots, like old abandoned parking lots, and they parked like 100 Teslas in this abandoned parking lot. Somebody came through and they just wrote down, stop Elon or something negative on every single one of the hoods.
What?
Yeah, it's real bad. Oversubscribed and
I
undersold.
think one of the worst things you can do, as a person committing a crime, is the destruction of personal property. That is just so heartless. I think that's one of the worst crimes.
Because typically the people you're hurting is not the big bad corporation you think you're hurting.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into politics.
No, but it's pretty bad. That's pretty rough to hear.
Yeah.
So I've talked a little bit about having a wait list before you do something, talking about like Cybertrucks and his how he went about doing that. It's the quickest and easiest way to grow an idea on if it's a good idea or not. How else can you test it? If you're going to spend all of this time developing it and doing all the research, a waitlist will give you that answer immediately. You'll have people who will say, yes, I'm interested in this, or no, I'm not.
Right.
And it will suggest a strong signal of interest if it's even something that you should go into. Because we talked earlier about you don't want to be in the big market, the mass market, and luxury is not really an option starting out, so the niche market. And when doing that, you have to have a strong signal of interest for your business, and it will allow you to say, okay, is there a strong demand for this?
Right.
What does the supply look like?
I feel like having a waiting list requires you to already have an audience and some authority though. So maybe not, but do you have any indication that somebody who's just starting up a business in a town is going to be able to dive into that?
This is kind of funny. It's a little nerdy.
Okay.
I'm a part of...
Don't tell me. What
I'm
group is
part
it
of
now?
a group on Facebook, and it's called the Cloud Appreciation
No, you're not.
Society.
I can't
And
right now.
so Stan came up with a barometer, okay, a cool looking barometer. And it was in the shape of a swan. And I posted on this group that I really like. And I'm like, okay, would you guys be interested in this? Is this a good idea? Do you think that this would sell well? I'm thinking of starting a business. How many of you would be interested if this was something on the market? I'll get a free, either strong or weak signal of interest no following.
If you could promise they would see a unique cloud after purchasing it.
You know, if I did it around the time that the Aurora Borealis was seen in like Georgia, maybe.
Unbelievable. I don't think
no.
those two things are tied in. But
It was all over the
I'm
forum.
saying barometric
okay?
pressure I don't think has anything to do with.
No, but if it were there, people would have been on the site.
Oh, the
more.
higher traffic. Higher
Yes,
traffic. I
so
see.
you don't have to have a following.
You've thought about this.
I have. I am on that site every day, okay?
Unbelievable. That and Shark Teeth.
Throwing me under the bus here. I'm also part of a Shark Teeth Association. Okay, so how can you ask for more signals and build the supply and demand for your business? Because current reality is separate from their desired reality, right? That's why people buy. They want something. So say if you wanted to go on a Disney trip, you know,
Okay.
you're not buying it because you have to get on an airplane for however many hours and then you have to fight through the crowds. And you're going because you want a different reality of experiencing the parks.
Adam Sandler has a really good Saturday Night Live skit about going on a vacation. He's like, you're gonna be the same person on vacation. If you're sad here, probably gonna be sad there.
So here at Romano Tours, we always remind our customers, if you're sad now, you might still feel sad there, okay?
So your business needs to get good at clearing the tension, clearing the path of how to get from point A to point B, where they are now and
Okay.
where they want to be. And the way to get there should be your business. So that's exactly what we're looking at when we're thinking of growing and scaling. So I've come up with 3 things that have really helped us through our businesses
Okay.
and how to implement those for their business. First thing is the online campaign, so your 7-Eleven campaign.
Okay.
7 hours and then 11 points of
content.
touch points.
Okay.
Yes. And then constantly refreshing when we think of building our rapport with our audience, we're constantly putting our good, relevant, new information out there for free
Right.
because we want them to grow their business. So the same thing for them, they should be doing that for their customers, their potential customers.
And you have to make your customer the hero. So it can't be
Yes.
about you and your accolades and your awards and where you were published and all these. It has to be about your customer and the problem they're trying to solve. And then you position yourself as the person who can solve whatever that apparel need is.
Yeah.
And then through there, you lead them through the process of it, and you say, this is what it'll look like for you whenever we've done it successfully, and this is the outcome we're trying to avoid, the negative outcome, and it solves so many issues. When you're trying to, what do I communicate to customers? How do I approach this whole thing? It becomes much, much easier when you think about it that way.
That's such a good point. I think about people on their social medias, and it depends on your following really, but for a lot of businesses and people will post their avocado toast in the morning or they'll post their workout and it's a page that has nothing to do with that. They're trying to build up their personal brand because how do you do that? And like you said, you aren't the spotlight, you become the spotlight for the product. Hey, look at that, look at this, look at how it can improve your life.
Yes.
That's such
You
a
just
good
said
point.
it, you become the spotlight.
Yes. The next thing is the quarterly spotlight. So once a quarter, you do something different than you usually do. You hold an online seminar, you hold a workshop, you do something where you're showing them a different side of your business. You break things up a little bit to let them, you open the curtain a bit to what's going on.
Okay.
So it just kind of throws it out from the ordinary of the 7-Eleven, breaks it up. And then the third thing is you should be constantly working on something called LAPS, L-A-P-S. Leads, where you're connecting with your warm signals. Appointments, you're talking to people who need additional help, which is, always, if you have a warm lead, you should always be doing that. Presentations, where you present the value of what you have and what you've offered.
Okay.
And then sales, where you help people who actually want to buy.
Interesting. Okay. So you got to keep running laps.
Yes, you gotta keep running laps. And it's always performance marketing where things can be measured in place of branding marketing. And those two don't work the same.
So what's the difference between performance and branding marketing?
So performance marketing is the laps we just talked about. You have the leads, the appointments, the presentations, and the sales.
Okay.
So it's very hands-on. And then you have branding marketing, which is, like we talked about earlier, where people don't connect with logos or don't connect with whatever type of yellow you have on that business card. They don't
Absolutely.
care. Like that's a different type of branding. It's not the same type as whenever you're hands-on actually selling to the person through needs being met.
That makes absolute sense. I think a lot of times people will sacrifice the performance-based marketing for the brand-based marketing. And when you cross those wires and you don't have enough sales to sustain your business, it can end up turning into a death spiral.
Yeah.
Where you're holding so tightly to a brand guide that is not bringing money in the front door when you should be focusing on your customers and solving their problems.
Well, how is any type of, color of anything going to correlate to, I need this in my life. I need this because I want to, focus on my why of getting into my niche.
I think there's a certain type of person who they've learned just enough about branding to know that it's powerful, know that it's important, but rather than understanding that it is an extension of your core reason for existing and the why behind your business, it becomes the focal point of your business instead. And that's kind of a reverse way to go about it, and it can be very damaging.
Yeah. So very interesting, though, that we've kind of went over the different things on getting more sales and what they need to be doing. Do you have anything else to add that could be of value to someone who's getting started with either ramping up their sales or trying to dive into a new niche?
I think one of the most important things to tie all this together, and this is something that we could probably put at the very beginning, I think one of the most important ways to tie this together, why do I need a personal brand in the first place? Well, the reason you need a personal brand is because, think about it this way, if you post products on TikTok, Etsy, on any of these other platforms, Amazon, wherever, and you are essentially borrowing the trust from these platforms. So they have built the 7-Eleven trust with the customers that are on their shopping, and you're hijacking that or you're borrowing it. So they know that I trust the platform. I know that they're going to make it right. They're not going to allow a seller on here that's going to scam me, or if the person does try to scam me, they'll make it right with me. So you immediately get that trust factor and you can sell on the platform. That means that you can short circuit the entire process, list a product, get sales, and immediately start scaling your business. That's fantastic. However, what we talked about the other day is what you give up in exchange for that. And I think that was maybe the missing puzzle piece. Why do I need a personal brand? I need a personal brand because TikTok holds onto the entire customer list. I have no access to resell these people. If I'm on Etsy, they can shut down a $500,000 business tomorrow and never answer another email.
We've actually had that happen.
And we've seen it happen, and we had our business shut down. They don't care. And it's very dangerous to put yourself in a position where you scale a business at effect in somebody else's marketplace. If you build a personal brand, though, then you can take those people from those platforms and then migrate with you onto your Shopify platform or whatever your own sales platform is. And I think that's really, for me, the key behind all of this. I want to build a personal brand so that I can build up durable income that's not dependent on any specific platform. I can bring them to my platform.
Right. I use reviews and pictures from Etsy and Instagram, both to put on my Shopify. And it just allowed the rapport and social proof to grow all the way around. So you're talking about, like you said, the 7-Eleven and the concentric circles. Whenever they see me on Etsy, and then they see me on Instagram, and then they see my Shopify. By that point, that's already 3 points of interaction. I don't know how many hours they've spent looking at it yet, because people scroll, they look around. But it definitely helped lead to sales.
Well, you've taken them from one location to another location to another location. I remember years ago, there was like dating advice, and you have to take somebody from a coffee shop to somewhere else to be able to get a second date or whatever it is, some idea.
Really?
You change locations, and then that's
I think that cuts into like talking and things.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Mr. Who's the Boss just had his wedding speech, and he was talking about how he never left the first location with his wife, even though he had all this, whatever. So point being, though, if you are taking these people from one platform and you're able to move them to another platform, that's somebody who's already showing really strong indications of being interested, and they might have already seen you 7, 8, 9, 10 times on one of the existing platforms. So when you do migrate them over, you do want to have the ability for them to convert pretty ready and available. So if they're on Instagram, you want to make sure that the link is never that far away. If they get to your website, the Buy It Now button needs to be front and center, wherever it is.
That's a great point. I love that.
That's all for this episode. I highly encourage you to take the free scorecard. It's about a 3-minute quiz, and it's going to give you a lot of insights on where you're doing well and where you're struggling in your business and what you need to change. It'll email your personalized result to you. There's no strings attached. It's completely free. We'll see you next time.